think I am. I am. All right. We had this fun in the first service too. So anyway, hey, just I want to take a minute and explain this. And as I do, why don't you guys do me a favor? If you look around on the black railings and then even here on the stage, you'll see stacks of these papers that look like this. Go ahead and grab one, start moving. If you're over here, you've got a long way. They kind of are back there. But grab those, hand them. So here's what we're doing. And as you guys are moving, I'll just keep talking, but feel free to move. And so here is our September Life Challenge. And if you're like one of our leaders and you serve in a ministry, you might have gotten an email with a video kind of explaining this. But for the month of September, we're taking this challenge, okay? And so there's two parts of this. There's two components. One will take place in our corporate gathering here, and then the other part will take place in your daily life. And so the first part's pretty simple, right? You're already a quarter of the way done with it. So the first part is just commit to being with us at church every Sunday in the month of September. Don't miss a single service. We're going to be doing some stuff in our services together that I believe are foundational to what God wants to do in you. And so often, I think there's just ways that we live without thinking about it that actually put up roadblocks to the kind of abundant life that God wants you to have. And so the reason we're calling it the Life Challenge is that I think we spend our summers trying to escape from the lives that we've built, right? And so we kind of build lifestyles that are too busy, that are too hectic, that are not healthy for us physically, that are draining us emotionally and spiritually and wearing on our relationships. And then we're like, okay, I got to take a break from this. I got to go get away and I've got to recharge my batteries and I've got to try to get healthy again. And then we come back to it in the fall and we do the whole thing all over again. So this September, we're trying something different. We're going to try to, what if I can build my daily life so that I'm experiencing the fullness of God every day? So that I'm actually feeding my relationships rather than straining them. So that I'm actually growing spiritually rather than depleting myself with the way that I'm moving through life and the pace that I'm moving at. And even physical things. And maybe I can do things physically that'll make me feel better and be more ready for the life that God has for me. So in our 4 services, we're going to really laying the groundwork for this so that you're ready for it. And then what we're asking you to do is on this paper, it's got 5 areas of disciplines. And what I mean by discipline is not spanking your children, although you're welcome to do that. But what I mean by disciplines is a discipline is something that you just do over and over and over again, and results come from the repetition. You see, sometimes I go to the gym and I try to get in shape in one visit. How many of you guys have ever done that? And you go, work out so hard, and then you weigh in afterwards. You're like, I still weigh the same thing? This is stupid. I thought this was going to work, right? You get in front of the mirror and you're like, no, it still looks the same. And so anyway, because that's something that's a discipline. When you do a little bit every day over time, it transforms things. And it's the same in every area of our life, whether we're talking about what we would consider our spiritual life or our relational life or our life where we're kind of living and participating in the mission of God, even our physical life, and then this area of generosity, which we'll talk about in a second. But what we're challenging you to do is to look at these, and we've got some recommended disciplines that you can add, but really, I'd like for you to kind of seek God's voice. I'm like, God, what do you want me to do? So spiritually, the most basic spiritual discipline is spending time every day in God's word and in prayer. And for some of you, that's not a habit yet. That's not a pattern. I would encourage you, make the commitment for the month of September. I'm going to spend blank minutes every day reading the Bible and praying. And, I know sometimes we're like, well, I'm going to do it for the rest of my life. And I admire the determination. But when you make a goal with no end, it wears you out and you then kind of shrink away from it. So I'm encouraging you to make these goals for the month of September. Like, hey, I'm going to do this for September, and then we'll reevaluate once I achieve it and I get to the end of it. So maybe it's having this daily pattern of scripture reading and prayer. If you're already doing that, there's things on here that on the website, if you look, we have these links to this Pause app that we've been using in my house for a while. And it just has this thing that reminds you periodically through your day to pause and just reflect on God and maybe pray for a moment and then keep moving through your day. It's a great thing to add to your daily life. There's all kinds of things you can do. Maybe it's adding a day a week of fasting and prayer. Maybe that's so maybe you're doing all these other things. Hey, maybe I'll do that for the month of September, but trying to make this concerted effort to grow closer to God in the month of September. And then relationally, like, are there ways that you can invest in the people around you in a concerted way in the month of September? Like one of the suggestions is to just every day try to text one friend and just encourage them, just check in on them to see how they're doing, right? Another thing you can do is commit every time you're at church in the month of September. Try to get to know one person that you don't know yet. For me, one of my challenges is, well, I'm just distracted all the time. Like I got too many things going on, and when I go home in the evening, like work never ends, and so you're doing this, you're on the phone, you're doing whatever, and so for me, for the relational area, I'm committing for the month of September. When I come home, I'm putting my phone on the counter and not keeping it on my body. And so that means if I need to use it, I can go over and use it, but then I'm going to put it back down there so that I can actually pay attention to the people who are around me. And so these are just examples of things that you could do. Physical, like maybe it's going to like go to the gym. Maybe there's something you currently eat you shouldn't eat. Maybe there's something you're consuming that you don't want to consume. For me, I take in way too much caffeine. And so this morning before church was my last cup of coffee for all of September. And so I'm like, hey, I'm just trying to be healthier. I don't want to be all wired out all the time. And so, unable to sleep. So I'm doing that. And it's just something to try to feel a little bit better and maybe live past the end of next week. And so, and then finally, generosity. Like if you're not a person that tithes, like this is a great month to step into that. Like figuring this out. What does this look like to give to God's church and to develop generosity? And that's what tithing is. It's like generosity on training wheels. It's a regular practice of generosity so that it grows in your life. Maybe you already tithe, and like maybe a great way to just build generosity beyond where you're at is to just like set aside a certain amount of money each week and just pray and ask God to show you someone you can just bless for no reason, and just watch for opportunities to be a blessing. And what you're going to do is you're going to foster this generous spirit in your life that'll just make your life overflow. And so so these are the 5 areas that we've kind of picked that I think it would be amazing if we each took like a discipline or two and committed to those. And again, you're not trying to change the whole world at once, but just something you can do in a measured way over the month of September, and then get to the end and see, like, is my life more abundant? And I'll mention this again at the end, but this isn't about like trying to earn God's favor or trying to like work your way into a better spirituality. The truth is the abundant life of God has already been poured out through Jesus. And it's kind of in the atmosphere. You just have to let it in. How many of you guys woke up this morning and realized it was nicer outside than it was in your house? Anybody? Did you open the window and let it in? How many of you guys opened the windows this morning? Anybody? All right. There was more smart people in the first service. And so anyway, so when it's nicer outside, what do? You open the window and you let the nice in. And that's essentially what we're doing with this life challenge, is that God has already poured out this abundant, full life. And so what we're trying to do is find some very measured ways that we can open the window and let it into our lives, okay? And so that's what we're doing. What I'm going to ask you to do is to make a commitment. There's this little like QR code and a number you can text. And so what we want you to do is to make a commitment to actually do these things that we're talking about. And so I think there it is. And so get on your phone, take that, and actually scan that QR code. It'll take you to where you can sign up. Or if there's a number, I think, too, maybe there's not, but you can just text LIFE to that. And so that will help you sign up for this. And the reason I want you to sign up is simple. Is that when you make a simple action of commitment, it helps you with accountability, doesn't it? And so it's like when you kind of miss a day or two of one of these things, and you're like, well, I give up. You're like, no, I texted the number, I made the commitment, I'm going to follow through. When you wake up and you're tired and you don't feel like coming to church next week, you're like, no, I texted LIFE to that number, I did the thing, I'm signed up, I'm going to do it, I'm going to be at church every Sunday this month, right? And so that'll help you, but also we're going to send just little texts, and that's how you sign up for the text. We'll send 3 a week, just little encouragements, little scriptures that you can text, it can encourage you as you do that. So that is what we're doing with that. And so if you see these, the last thing is these are printed so that you can actually write down what your commitment of disciplines are, and then take it home and put it somewhere where you can see it, all right? And so that's what that is. Thanks for your time on That. Okay. One last thing on a point of order I want to mention to you. At the beginning of the year, we raised some money at the church because we had a roof that was ailing and leaking, and you guys were very generous and you gave towards that. And so we had that money set aside in an account for that. Here's what's happened, just in case you hadn't heard. Our insurance company determined that there was hail damage and that we have all this. So the roof itself was covered and paid for by the insurance claim. All right, so that's amazing. That's great. That money's already in our bank account. We're working, and there's actually more liability on their part than just the roof. And so we're still negotiating and working through all of that stuff. But at least the roof as a whole is covered, and we'll probably see a lot more things happen as a result of that. And so because that money that we raised no longer has any spot to be used for the roof, what the board decided to do is to reallocate that money back into the general fund, because there's quite a few large projects around here that are kind of like deferred maintenance, things that we just haven't been able to do in a while. So that as we reallocate that, that'll allow us to still use it in the way that it was really intended and to have it for use as ministry needs arise. And so if you gave to that, you have any questions about that, you'd like to know more, you're welcome to come and talk to me about that. But that's what they decided to do with that. And so now, having said all that, we are jumping into our 4-week series called Building a Life You Don't Want to Escape From. And we're starting with this message today, which I'm just calling striving. And striving is an interesting word because it has two potential meanings, one that's positive and one that's negative. And so striving on its own just means to put forward effort towards a goal. Right? And so like if you're running a race and here's the finish line, you're striving to get to the finish line. But in a more negative sense, striving can also represent a pattern of living where we're just always pushing, but we have no finish line that we're pushing towards. And we can just get caught up in this pattern of never being able to be satisfied because we always are reaching for something more. And so in this book that I read years ago, this author, he actually spent a good deal of his life as he was kind of searching in his faith, and he had attended a bunch of different kinds of Christian churches. And so in this book, he wrote about all of his experiences in these different denominations and these different churches. And in a certain kind of church that he had attended for a while, he said like some really positive things. He said, man, these people in general were very passionate about God. They were very devoted in their faith. But on a negative side, he said there was like this underlying feeling that everyone kind of felt like they were living on a treadmill with a carrot dangling in front of their face. And like the harder they would try, they would never get any closer to reaching the goal. And so it was really kind of representative of this form of perpetual striving, perpetually trying, but never feeling like you're getting anywhere. Like there's always some future destination. And when you arrive at that point, then God will be happy with you. Then your efforts will have been worthwhile. Then, like blessing is going to flow down. But where you are right now is never quite good enough. There's no sense of peace. There's no sense of rest or of celebration. And what he was describing, that feeling, is what we're talking about today. It's striving. And so striving as a definition that we'll give today would just be the standard for feeling like we've done well or like God is pleased is always just beyond wherever we currently are, right? And so whatever you're currently doing, it's like, how many of you guys ever like complimented a Christian and they like immediately turn it into like a self-deprecating thing? They're like, oh man, like I really love how you did that. Yeah, but I didn't do this. Yeah, I didn't. And it's like, and we can get stuck in these patterns where no matter how good we do, we feel like we're falling short, right? And that is treadmill living. That is striving. And so we can get caught in patterns of striving in so many areas of our lives. Like there's moms here who no matter how well you do with your kids, you always feel the need to apologize for how they're dressed or how they're behaving or something. I've just ever seen that. It's like you go to someone's house, and no matter how lovely the house is, sorry for the mess. And you're like, no, there's no mess. No, your children are fine. You're doing well, right? For some of us, it's our physical appearance. No matter how much weight we lose, no matter how in shape we get, no matter how great our hair looks or how anything, no matter what it is, we're always going to feel like we've fallen short, right? And so, like, how many of you guys are here and you wish you could go back to weighing what you did weigh when you first thought you were fat? Anybody? I mean, I would love it. Like, that would be great, right? But no matter what you do, it's like you're just always going to feel like you're not there. We can feel this way in our finances. No matter how much we make, no matter how much we save, we're still thinking that ecstasy, fulfillment, whatever it is, safety, security, is just over the next hill and the next accomplishment. In our careers, we can feel that way. Like, I'll finally be happy once they give me this position, once I get that promotion, once I get this, then I'll have really made it, right? And we can definitely feel this way before God. Like, man, this can be such a challenge where no matter how devout, no matter how much time we spend reading, no matter how much we pray, no matter how many friends we try to help or love or reach out to in the faith, like, we never feel like we're measuring up. And until we discover how God wants us to view ourselves and the role that our efforts play in our faith, then peace and satisfaction will always escape us. You see, we have this hard relationship because we know that we're saved by faith in Jesus and not by our actions. But then what role do our efforts play in this? And how does this thing really work out? In Luke chapter 15, Jesus told a really profound parable that gets to the heart, I think, of the human condition. And I believe today it's going to set some of us free from this pattern of striving in our life. And so it's a little bit different. Rather than like just point one, point two, we're just going to be reading through this together. We're going to read through a lot of scripture, and we're just going to stop and kind of talk about it as we go. So starting in verse 11, it says, Jesus continued, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the estate.' So he divided his property between them, and not long after that, the younger son got together all he had and set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living." And so, just so that you know, this request in and of itself was a disgrace. In the ancient world, in an honor-based culture, in most situations, this would have been punishable by death. Essentially, what this son was saying to his dad is, I just wish you were dead. Like, I'm only waiting around here for you to die so I can have your stuff. So why don't you just go ahead and give me the stuff, and then I can leave, and we'll just skip all the stuff in the middle. Right? So that's what he was essentially saying to his dad. And the father in the story, even though he could have just sent him off into exile or even had him killed, this father in the story was different than what the culture expected. He was humble, he was merciful, and he gave this terrible boy what he asked for. He gave him the inheritance and allowed him to leave. And there's some meaning in this, because sometimes God will let us have a wrong thing that we want just so that we can then discover what we really needed all along. How many of you guys have ever wanted something you knew you shouldn't have it? You went for it, you got it, God let you do it, and then you were like, whoa, my parents were right, so-and-so was right, all these things, because he'll let you do that. And then at the end, you'll realize that he was right. And so this younger son thought he was missing out on life. He'd heard stories about what went on in some of these distant countries and some of the things he could be a part of. And so he thought, man, I'm missing out on it being here. I'm going to go and I'm going to have a good time. And some of you have made this mistake. You've lived this mistake. You grew up in your household. You felt like mom and dad or the church was sheltering you from the real fun that was out there, and you went out there looking for it. And you believing that this wild living was going to scratch some itch inside of you, right? And you found out in the end that it was a lie. Others of us, maybe we're still making that mistake right now. Like maybe we just haven't been let down by it enough yet to finally see the truth. And so many of us live on this treadmill of all the experiences that life has to offer, thinking that we're just maybe one experience away from satisfaction. Right? And that's where this son is at the beginning of the story. Verse 14 continues. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. For all of his striving, he ended up further from satisfaction. Like he finishes the story hungry. And some of you have been there. You went out searching for this thing that was inside, and after years and years of just throwing yourself into it, you're like, man, I'm hungrier than I was when I started. And it's because there is nothing that we can own or taste or experience that will meet the unending desire that all of us feel inside. And I know that we can chase it for a long time, right? But there is nothing. There's no amount of accomplishment. There is no amount of experiences. There's no beautiful things you can see or experience or taste or anything that will finally quench that thirst. And trying to meet that need through physical stuff and appetite fulfillment, it left this son more in need than when he started, and it left him alone. And many of you have experienced that, where you've found yourself after years of addiction or poor choices, and there's just brokenness all around, and it's taken from you rather than giving you anything. And maybe some here have wrecked families or futures or even their bodies, and they were never filled by what they were reaching for. And so this pursuit leaves us in the end like where this son is at this moment. We end up like this guy where we're looking at pig's food, wishing we could have it. And like in the Jewish mindset, the pig was an unclean animal. And so to look, not only to be serving the pigs, he's serving food to pigs. And he's desperate. He's so hungry that he wishes he could have what they have, but he can't even have that. So verse 17 says, then when he came to his senses, and there's some here today that have reached that point where you're like, what on earth am I doing? He said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death? Like, why did I ever leave? What was I thinking? Life was so good back there. Even the servants lived better than I'm living here. So verse 18, he said, I'll set out and I'll go back to my father and I'll say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Just make me like one of your hired servants. That's his plan. So then verse 20, so then he got up and he went to his father. Now I want you to know in his mindset here, he is making progress, but he's still not all the way there yet, right? So he now knows pleasures and experiences and all of this stuff that I've been searching in the distant country. This is an empty promise. So now instead of that, he decides to go the route of effort and earning. He's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull myself up by my bootstraps and I'm going to work hard and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to prove myself and I'm going to earn my way and I'm going to rebuild a better life. And it's so dangerous because so often when we come out of brokenness, we can just exchange it for a different kind of emptiness, where we're now relying on our effort and what we can do to make it better. Right? And so this young man, he knows he doesn't deserve to be part of the family, but he thinks at least his efforts can earn him a better way of life. So the verse continues, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. And he ran to his son and he threw his arms around him and kissed him. And I want you to know that those words, the way that Jesus worded that there in this story, he did it on purpose. When he said, while he was still a long way off, there's symbolism embedded there. Because he's still participating and striving. He's just changed kinds of striving. So he was striving in experiences and pleasure. And now he's decided to try to strive through effort and earning. And so the Father intercepts this whole plan here. And so it's interesting. The Father doesn't wait for him to come and make his proposal and go, that's very good. I'm glad that you've seen the light and you want to come and I'll let you serve. Instead, the Father runs out. And this moment, as Jesus was telling this story, would have been shocking. Because in that culture, like, the Father was dignified. Like, he didn't run. And he definitely wouldn't run to this son who had betrayed him. But he does, right? There's this mercy in this Father that is only reminiscent of our Heavenly Father, right? And so he's been watching for his son to return the whole time so he can see him on the horizon. And when he sees him, he's not filled with anger, which is what we imagine. When we mess up and we think about God, we get nervous, don't we? We begin to feel the anxiety. Maybe we have a bad week and you're like, the last place I want to go is church because I know I've messed up. But this Father isn't filled with anger. It says he's filled with compassion. Because even though the Son was sinning, he was actually pulling things down on himself. He was only hurting himself. And so the Father's response to the sin of the Son is compassion. And so I want you to know that whatever mistakes you're walking back from, when God sees you walking in his direction, he's filled with compassion towards you. The Father didn't wait for the Son to finally get it right and then show up, which is how we imagine it sometimes. Like, well, I've made a mess of it, but I need to do this and this and this and that, and then I'll be pleasing to God, and then I'll be able to come back home. And the Father's like, no, you're welcomed before you even get here. He greeted him on the way and accepted him on the way. Verse 21 continues the welcome. He says, the Son said to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. And then verse 22 is so funny because it doesn't say it, but it's like, but the Father said to his servant. So the Father interrupted the Son's pitch. He's like, whoa, right? Talk to the hand. He just stopped him, right? And he's like, I'm not even going to listen to you finish your pitch, right? And so the Father stops in mid-sentence. He calls the servants, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. You see, the robe was representative of righteousness. And so the Son showed up. He would have been wearing tattered slaves' clothes. He would have still smelled like the pigs he'd been slopping. He would have looked like the distant country. He would have been a disgrace to look at. And instead of any of that, the Father says, let's take the best robe and let's wrap him in righteousness, right? And so he says, put the best robe on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And so in the ancient world, the ring, it carried the family crest, the insignia. And so in putting the ring back on his finger, he was actually giving him the right to do business for the family again. It was essentially the ability to sign his dad's name. Like, boom, you've got full rights restored as a son. And then in wealthy households, like, the servants would dress nice still, but they were barefoot. And so only sons had sandals on their feet. If you were a servant, you were just barefoot all the time. And so putting the sandals on his feet, like, no, you're not a servant. You're a son. You're righteous. And you've got even the ability to make decisions for the family. Again, verse 23 says, bring the fatted calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate because this son of mine was dead and he's alive again. He was lost and now he's found. And so they began to celebrate. And so again, this son had this whole speech prepared for the father, and the father dismissed it right out of hand. The son thought he was going to work hard and earn his keep, but there was no real way he could do that. What he owed his father was too big, right? And let's just be honest, there's nothing we can do as people to make up for what we've done wrong. We can't even get started on that. And so he's like, look, like you've disgraced, you told me you wished I was dead, essentially. You can't work your way back from that, right? And so he just stops that whole attempt. There's no way he can repay his debt, right? And so this life of striving through effort and earning, the father was stopping him before he ever launched into it. He's like, listen, this is going to be just as empty as what you just ran away from. And so the dad saves him from years of wasted effort. You see, whether it's pursuit of pleasure or trying to earn our way by being good enough, enough is never enough. We'll always need more. And so the father ignores the son's pitch about earning his way, and he calls for the robe and the ring and the sandals, and there's some symbolism there. The robe, the slippers, and the ring, they actually paint a very beautiful picture of a truth, and it's that God does not accept us back on a probationary status. He doesn't like welcome you and be like, well, you're not there yet, but we're going to put you on the team, and if you play pretty well, at the end of the month, we'll consider taking you. Right? Well, you've got a 90-day probationary period on the job, and if you do well enough, you really earn your way here, then you're going to be a permanent employee. No. Before he even reached home, he was still out on the road. They brought the robe to him. They brought the slippers to him, and they brought the ring to him. He was restored as a son before he ever did a thing. And it's because Jesus brings our full restoration back into the family of God with all that family relationship entails. And so there's two things that the younger son shows us. First, it's that striving for fulfillment in the things of the world always leaves us hungrier than when we started. And second, we cannot earn our place in the family of God, nor can we earn his provision. God just throws parties and he gives gifts to his kids. That's what he's doing in this story. And so I want you to hear the voice. If the prodigal were a real person, Jesus made this story up to teach us a bunch of stuff. But if the prodigal could talk to us today, he would just tell us, listen, right? Love won't be enough. Like what you can draw from another person in a relationship, it will not fill the hole that you're trying to fill with it. Sex won't be enough. Career accomplishments won't be enough. Even your relationship with your kids, if you're trying to fill that hole inside with that, it's not going to be enough. Whatever you drink or smoke won't be enough. And even that temporary rush of excitement you get when you click that website, it won't be enough. There's no finish line in those races. They're perpetual. Because there's something missing in us that only God can give. And so it's interesting how quickly this younger son pivots from striving in pleasure, goes right into trying to strive in effort and earning. But that's what so many of us do, right? And mercifully, the father just shut down that attempt immediately. So, guys, there is nothing that you can do to make up for all that you've done wrong. For any of us. And so I want to invite you to stop striving and actually just accept the robe that the Father offers. Accept the slippers and the ring and come into the party that he's thrown. You see, you are a son or a daughter of God. And you have full access to everything that comes with that relationship. So there's no part of this that God has allowed you to earn. And when we're so busy striving, sometimes we actually think we're making God proud, right? And like, I know that we're talking about these spiritual disciplines and we want to build these, but I know there's times where it's like, man, I'm doing really good. I've done my devotions for at least 3, maybe 4 days straight. Like I'm on an all-time streak. I didn't miss a day, and I've only stabbed one person in anger, and I've only whispered 3 cuss words while I'm driving, and I'm just doing really, really well spiritually. And we get on these kicks where we're actually doing good, and we start to think, man, like I'm really doing this. God, man, I'm really pleasing Him. I'm really making a difference in the world. And sometimes we think that we're doing it, and we're actually getting further from His heart because we think we're earning it. And He's actually just kind of stepped back and He's watching us wear ourselves out. And He's like, all right, go ahead. Yeah. See how far that gets you. Do your best. Yeah. Give it all you got. And when we finally collapse on the floor in exhaustion, that's when He says, all right, now let's talk about how this thing really works. You didn't earn it. It's I gave it to you from the beginning. Right? Now we come to probably the saddest part of the story. Verse 25 starts like this. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called to one of the servants and asked, what's going on? Your brother has come, he replied. Your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound. And the older brother became angry and he refused to go in. So the father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fatted calf for him? And so mid-rant, the father, with a very different tone, interrupts and says, my son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we have to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and he is alive again. He was lost and he's found. You see, the older brother was stuck in this pattern of earning an effort. And by showing us the older brother, Jesus lets us see the downstream effect of trying to earn our way with God. It makes us bitter. It makes us angry. It separates us from other people and from the Father, right? See, this older brother, he thought that his position in the household was the result of him following the rules and working hard. And so over time, he began to believe that he had earned his way. And his younger brother, who didn't do any of the work, comes home and he gets a party. That's not fair. You see, when we come to believe that we're earning our way, it actually breeds animosity in us for people and for God. And I've seen it so often where Christians, they're just angry at people who are sinners. They're angry at the world around them all the time. And they just see things that people are doing and they're just mad for no reason. It doesn't affect them in any way, but they're mad at what people around them seem to be getting away with. And so some of us really do get angry when we see this stuff that doesn't affect us at all, but it's partly because on some level, we think that we are where we are in life because of our hard work. And so we think kind of like the older brother. Here, I've been slaving away, trying to do what's right. And these people are just doing whatever they feel like doing. And we get bothered because they seem to be getting away with it. And that's what the older brother was feeling. That's what a lot of us, we deal with these feelings at times. And it separates us from people that we should have compassion for instead. And other times, we actually get mad at God because all of our effort should have earned us a better life. And so sometimes we don't call it anger. We call it being perplexed and like, God, why am I still dealing with this sickness? God, why is this still happening? I've tried so hard. I've done this. All these other people who aren't doing so well, and that you give them these things. Why am I struggling even though I'm trying so hard? Right? And so we almost feel like God kind of owes us something. Now, here's the thing. We know that's blasphemy. So we would never vocalize it. And we kind of hide from the fact that we even feel that way. We don't like to even admit to ourselves that we're angry with God and questioning what He's allowed in our life as opposed to someone else's life. But that is what's going on in our hearts. And it pays to figure out that this frustration is linked to the fact that we honestly feel like we're owed more than others because of how good we have been. And that's exactly what the older brother was dealing with. But then this story kind of closes with a cliffhanger, right? And so it closes with the father saying, listen, everything I have is yours. There's this party. Come on inside. And then it just ends without telling us, did he go in or did he not? It just leaves us hanging with this older brother mad at his younger brother and mad at his father. And look again at the wording of the way that he describes his life in the father's household. He describes it as slaving for you. I mean, this other son was away in the distant country, and he remembered life at home, and he's like, man, even the servants have a better life than me. I better go home and get back to the father's house. But the son, who was supposedly the good one, views his time there as slaving away, right? And the father says something really shocking. He's like, listen, everything I have is yours. This stuff has always been yours. You're my son. You're not a slave, right? You want a goat party? You should have said something, buddy. Like you can have 10 goats. I don't care about the goats. Eat all the goats you want to eat, right? I'm the one that's been wanting to have parties. You are the one that's cracking the whip on yourself. It's not me. And there's so many of us, I think, need to hear that. You're the one that's been cracking the whip. It's not your father. You're the one that's been always setting the standard another step further, another step further. It's not him. All of this is a free gift to you. You didn't earn any of it. But nonetheless, it's yours. And so this son who thinks he's earned his way, you know this, he was born into this. He's a son of privilege. Everything in his existence was given to him by his father as a gift. But because he continued to work when his brother played, he believed he was owed more than the brother. But what did both of those kids get from their father? They got everything. It was based not on what they did. It was based on their relationship with their father, not their work around the house. That's why when the son came back from the distant country, he was received right away based on who he was as a son, not based on the work he wanted to do. You see, life in your Father's house was never merit-based. This son didn't earn his breakfast every morning. How many of you guys are parents? Anybody raise your hand? You've been a parent. You are a parent. Did your kids earn the breakfast you gave them every morning? No, they didn't, right? Did they earn the clothes you put on their back? Like, well, you better go do some chores. You're going to be naked until you finish them, right? No. You clothe them before they do anything, right? You feed them before they can do anything to earn it. They're not earning their way. He wasn't earning his food or his clothes. He didn't earn his last name. Be like, you're John blank until you finish this work, and then you're John Stevenson. No. He didn't earn his last name. It was all because he was born into his Father's household. So, whether you've been doing this Christianity thing faithfully, or maybe you're just coming back to it, everything we do as Christians is simply living as part of the family of God. Our presence within his family is a gift. It's all a gift. One brother was striving in craziness, and the other brother was striving in goodness and hard work, and they both ended up hungry. Right? The one was looking at pig's food, the other was outside the party looking in. But the father's posture towards both forms of striving was the same. It was compassion. He ran out to meet the younger son, and he left the party to go find the older son. And he pleaded with him, son, come inside. In 2 Corinthians 5:21, it just lays out the whole gospel in one verse. It says, God made him, and him is Jesus. God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. And so God put the sin of humanity on Jesus, punished it on him, and then took the righteous life of Jesus and put it on you as a gift. You have been made righteous by the efforts of Jesus on your behalf. So any righteousness that you have is a gift. You didn't earn it, right? You have been given something that you cannot earn or repay. And your Father actually wants to celebrate you receiving it. God's posture over your life is one of celebration because of what Christ has done. Right? The party is going on. It started in the story, and it's still going. And he still runs out to the road to meet prodigals. And he still leaves the party to go find older brothers that can't let go of their own self-righteousness. And he pleads with them. And it's all yours for free. I know you feel like you've done so much, but it's all a gift. It's all a gift. Just come in and let's just enjoy each other. Let's just have a party. Now, I want to be clear. Yes, there's obedience to God involved in our faith. Yes, we walk away from sin and into righteousness, and we try to imitate Jesus, but those things come as a result of God's Spirit that now lives in us. That is the transformation that comes because of your presence in the family of God. That's the robe that he puts on you and the ring and the slippers that he gives to you. God never intended for you to live a life of constant striving and trying to earn your way with him. And so what I want to invite you to do, Colton's going to come. We're going to sing a song together in a second. But I want to invite us to just get off the treadmill and recognize, hey, I'm part of the family of God. Everything in my life is here as a gift that God has given me. I love Isaiah 55 verses 1 and 2. It's actually like a prophecy about something that was going to change. It was written 700 years before Jesus, and it's talking about how things would change with Jesus. And it says this: Come, all who are thirsty, come to the waters, and you who have no money, come and buy and eat. I love those words. You who have no money, come and buy. You've got no money, come and buy and eat. Come and buy wine and milk. Like, it's talking about celebration without money and without cost. Because God has already paid that cost for you. Verse 2 says, Why spend money on what is not bread, and your labor on what does not satisfy? He's saying, get off the treadmill. Stop looking for life in things where it doesn't come from. Stop trying to earn your way when it's been given to you by grace. Come and eat and drink and stop striving. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to invite you to stay in your seat. We're going to sing this song together.